Even though 2024 had a lot of disappointment and a few flops, 2024 was also a great year in cinema. For this video, I am breaking down my 11 favorite films of 2024. So get your beverage ready. Yes, my mug says Always Tired Club because I am very jet lagged. Coming in at number 11, The Wild Robot. This is honestly one of the best animated films of the year. But I have to admit, Big Brother made me watch it. In this season of American Big Brother, one of the challenge prizes was a private screening of The Wild Robot, and the game that they played tied into the movie a little bit. So yes, brand partnerships in television still work. The film is about a robot who finds himself in the wild, and the robot finds himself raising a wild gosling, which is a type of bird, not Ryan Gosling. Okay, sorry, that was a bad joke. This has stunning animation, a great soundtrack, also great voice acting, especially by Lupita Nyong'o. Number 10. Monkey Man. Monkey Man is Dev Patel kicking butt in the name of justice. It's an amazing action film that will keep you on the edge of your seat. It's also directed by Dev Patel, and this is a fantastic directorial debut. A little bit of behind the scenes trivia. They actually filmed some of the footage on cell phones. And of course, me as a cinephile and someone that studied film production in school, tried to clock the shots as I was watching it. But I have to admit, the shots were unclockable. Amazing job, fantastic film. I think it's a really good standalone film, but I wouldn't be surprised if a sequel comes out. Number 9. Dee Dee. So at the time of this recording, I actually watched it last night, hence why there's 11 films on this list. I didn't want to knock out any of the other ones. This film is a coming-of-age story that takes place in 2008, surrounding a middle schooler in the summer before high school. This film perfectly captures what it was like being a middle schooler in 2008. And I know that from experience because I was a middle schooler in 2008. Man, I feel so old because now they're making period pieces based off of my childhood. Like, what the heck? Ooh. Don't worry, it's just water. This was a directorial debut by Sean Wang, and this film is loosely based on his life. Although it's really fun, it's also an emotional film too. I think this film did a perfect job really capturing the spirit of 2008 as well as the dialogue. Kids were reckless in 2008, let me tell you. By the way, if you like the vibe so far, consider giving this video a like and subscribing. Join the OG subscriber club. Number 8, Love Lies Bleeding. When I saw this trailer, I was shook. I was so excited. My girl Kristen Stewart is in it. And if y'all are still hating on Kristen Stewart after all these years and still stigmatizing her because of Twilight, you need to do yourself a favor and look at her other films. And she's an Oscar-nominated actress for Spencer, so get into it. This movie takes place in the 80s. It's a sapphic crime love story. I'm not gonna give too much away about this plot, but it is a revenge story, and there's so many twists and turns. It's absolutely brilliant. But of course, we have Katie O'Brien playing a bodybuilder, and she is an absolute star in this movie. Even though it's a gritty crime thriller, there is also some let's just say it gets really bonkers at the end of the movie. I'll just put it that way. But it's really good. Number 7, Inside Out 2. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think Inside Out 2 is better than Inside Out 1. I would say this one is definitely more memorable, especially with the addition of new characters as Riley grows up. This follows the main character of Riley as she now hits middle school. She's going through all the things that a middle school girl would go through. You know, this would be a really good double feature with Turning Red. But what I loved most about this movie is how universal the story is, and it's not just for kids. This movie has one of the best depictions of anxiety in cinema. I'm not even kidding. It is so good. And it actually shows kids like why they go through anxiety. So yeah, don't sleep on animated films this year with this movie and The Wild Robot. And animation is not just for kids. Number 6, Blink Twice. For the longest time, this movie was on the top of my favorites list. This is the first movie of 2024 that truly just blew my mind. Another fantastic directorial debut on this list, this time from Zoe Kravitz. Take a drink every time I say directorial debut. But Blink Twice is the movie that I wanted Don't Worry Darling to be. I would say it's like a horror thriller mystery, but it's not one of those like jump scare horror movies. It's more so the, oh my gosh, this is so scary because it's so grounded in realism type of movie, because they're talking about real stuff. They're talking about the abuse of power, in turn the abuse of women. There is a trigger warning before this movie, which I think was needed, and I believe more films should follow suit. If you watch my disappointment list video, I mentioned that one of the films included an essay scene that kind of put me off a bit. Might seem a little bit contradictory of me really liking this movie, but feeling disappointed in the other movie. I think it's more so a fact of context and depiction. I think for the film that I mentioned in my disappointment list, it just really threw me off. Whereas for this movie, I was a little bit more prepared for it, especially for it being a thriller. But the essay scene in this movie is definitely more intense than the movie I mentioned in my disappointment list. So I would still say proceed with caution for this one. If I rewatch Blink Twice, I might skip over it the next time I watch it. But otherwise, this is a fantastic film. I also want to give a shout out to Naomi Ackie. She's an absolute star and I want to see her in more films. And before I get into my top 5, I want to know what your top 5 is. A little bit of disclaimer, my top 5s are pretty much neck and neck. Number 5, Anora. This movie absolutely eats. When I found out that Mikey Madison was in it, I was already sad. I knew Mikey Madison had a promising acting career ever since I saw her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And of course the Scream movies. I totally this was so unintentional for me to wear a Ghostface shirt. How about that? Oh, tying ends. But anyway, I was so excited to see her star in a movie. The Oscar buzz is definitely warranted. I am a big fan of the movie The Florida Project, and I've also seen Red Rocket, and I recently watched Tangerine. And I will say that this is actually one of Sean Baker's best films, if not the best. But I still love The Florida Project. That movie's dope. These two are neck and neck, honestly. The cinematography has definitely stepped up. The editing as well has definitely stepped up. Sean Baker also edited it. Even though there's bigger stars in it with Mikey Madison as the lead, this film still has that documentary feel to it. And some of the extras in the movie are actually everyday people just going about their day reacting to things. I was actually surprised about how hilarious this movie is. It's definitely a comedy romance, but it does have its very serious elements too. But when it gets serious, it doesn't feel jarring. Number 4, Challengers. Not gonna lie, I'm surprised this even cracked my top 5, but this movie gets better upon rewatch. Fantastic performances from the entire cast. This is one of the movies where I got so sucked into the story that I forgot that the characters were even acting. Even Zendaya. Zendaya became Tashi. She really did. And for those that are skeptic by the perceived nature of this film, it's actually not raunchy at all. There is nudity, but it's only full frontal male nudity at like one blink or you miss it part. And some subtle female nudity, but it's nothing too outrageous. Like there were more sex scenes in Anora and Love Lies Bleeding than there were in Challengers. So if you avoid Challengers because you didn't want to see Zendaya being tag teamed by two dudes, you would not see that. Number 3, The Substance. Oh man, The Substance is so good. Like it is truly worth the hype. I had the biggest FOMO over this movie because it didn't play at any of my local theaters, and so many people were talking about it when it came out. But not gonna lie, I was kind of scared because I'm not a really big body horror girly. This is a movie that deals with the fears of aging and how society and the entertainment industry treats older women, but not even just older women, just aging women, and how women internalize those beauty standards, because oftentimes it really does affect our careers. And I think body horror is the perfect genre to explore these themes. And this movie actually came out at a very perfect time because of the Ozempic movement. This is post the big plastic surgery boom of the 2010s. Even the color palette of the marketing materials and the production design, it's pink and green, which is a very popular color scheme of 2024 for various reasons that we will probably get into later on in the video. But it's so funny that The Substance happens to be the same lime green as the Brat Summer lime green or the Brat lime green. Very fascinating. But Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, fantastic in this movie. But yeah, absolutely loved it. Going into number 2, Wicked. You can take the girl out of theater, but you can't take the theater kid out of the girl. Or whatever, I don't know if that worked. But anyway, I actually watched the musical. I was absolutely blown away. So I was just holding my breath for this movie, and they definitely stepped it up. I think everyone was just so pleasantly surprised by this movie, despite of the I guess, controversies and just some of the drama surrounding this movie. But Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, they just absolutely ate these roles up. I've been listening to the Wicked soundtrack ever since November, and I think I'm going to continue listening to it. Even if you're not super into musicals, this is still a really good movie. And if you've come this far, yeah, you would know this list is definitely based off of favoritism. And with that being said, I'm going to talk about my guilty pleasure movies, because there were movies that aren't like 100% the best movies ever, but I still enjoyed watching them. The first one is Trap. I loved it in the theaters, not gonna lie, and I think this movie is getting way too much hate. I actually did a podcast episode on Trap with Marley Loves Film, so check that out after you're done with this video. I also loved the unnecessary sequels of Twisters and Gladiator 2 because of the plot. Why are you looking at me like that? But in all seriousness, these are fun watches. Which brings me to number one, my most rewatched film, and that is Lisa Frankenstein. How about that? Even though I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd, this is hands down my favorite movie of 2024. And we have another directorial debut by Zelda Williams. Ha, take a sip. If you just need a good laugh and just want a silly comedy to watch, Lisa Frankenstein is the one for you. And I actually did a podcast episode on Lisa Frankenstein with my friends Dylan and Ray, so check that video out next.